And it's my face again. Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, Giallo enthusiasts. This is a video that I was hoping to do a few weeks ago, but now is better than never, I suppose. So this is my 1970 Giallo film recap. I am going to talk about the 5 Giallo films that I covered on the channel for the year of 1970, and I will give the stats in terms of what I observed for my cliches, the rankings, things like that. And then I will talk about which ones are my favorite, who my favorite directors for 1970 are, favorite actors, favorite pieces of music, favorite scenes, favorite kills, all that good stuff pertaining only to the 5 films I covered for the year 1970. So let's take a look. The 5 films we will be talking about will be The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, directed by Dario Argento, $5 for an August Moon, directed by Mario Bava, The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, directed by Luciano Ercoli, Hatchet for the Honeymoon, also directed by Mario Bava, and A Quiet Place to Kill, directed by Umberto Lenzi. We're going to start this video by looking at the AZ cliches. The lowest score for AZ cliches for the year of 1970 was 13 out of 26, and that was Hatchet for the Honeymoon. Highest score was 21 out of 26, and that was A Quiet Place to Kill. The mean or average score for all the movies was 17 out of 26. I had to take some notes. I have the most common AZ cliches observed. These ones were seen in all 5 films, and that was A is for alibi, E is for eyeballs, F is for fashion. But if you're familiar with the channel, you know I practically always give F is for fashion. L is for lies, O is for obsession, Q is for questions, S is for secrets, Y is for yelling, and Z is for zoom. Some runners up. These are the movies that, these are the cliches that were observed 4 times. These are G is for gloves, I is for infidelity, K is for knives, T is for telephone, and W is for witness. I forgot to actually record this section, but the least common AZ cliches observed for 1970 are B is for blind, D is for dwarves, M is for morgue, and P is for priest. Those cliches were not seen at all. And the runners-up are C is for children, H is for hallucinations, and X is for xenophobia. Those were observed twice. The top scores for the full GialliTally scores were, in 5th place, Hatchet for the Honeymoon, 13 out of 26 AZ cliches, and a total of 445 points. 4th place was The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, 16 out of 26, 491 points total. 3rd place was $5 for an August Moon, 17 out of 26, 547 points total. 2nd place was The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 18 out of 26, 564 points total. Quick caveat, I think Bird with the Crystal Plumage, there was something that I had noticed when I was doing a later film that I might need to add a couple points for Bird. There's a few movies that later I catch something I forgot to add, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. 1st place was A Quiet Place to Kill, 21 out of 26, 579 points. My favorite male actors for the year 1970. I'm going to say Tony Massante for The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Jean Sorel in Quiet Place to Kill, and Stephen Forsyth in Hatchet for the Honeymoon. My favorite male performance overall was Tony Massante in The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. My favorite female actor, honestly, it's just Marina Kofa. So my favorite female performance was Marina Kofa in A Quiet Place to Kill. Favorite director overall for 1970? No, I was kind of torn with this one because Dario Argento debuts in 1970 with Bird with Crystal Plumage. So already that's like, seems like, okay, that should be my pick. Mario Bava releases 2 films though this year. And despite what many people might think, I actually really like $5 for an August Moon. I've always found it to be very charming. I love the score. The writing is fine. I mean, I watch it every time. It's one of the movies that I can actually like pay attention and watch. On top of that, we have Umberto Lenzi. This is my probably my favorite Umberto Lenzi Giallo that I've seen so far. I really like Orgasmo, but something about A Quiet Place to Kill, it just takes the cake for me. It's just more up my alley. And then Luciano Ercoli. I do like Luciano Ercoli. He's not one of my favorite Giallo film directors. Like if I was talking about top 5, he's probably not my top 5. Honestly, I probably neither is Umberto Lenzi, but that doesn't mean I dislike any of their movies. And this is a really good debut film for Luciano Ercoli. So really, it's like any one of those directors is a good choice for favorite director for the year of 1970. I have to say, though, all things considered, my favorite director of Giallo films for the year 1970 is Dario Argento. And the reason you can take is that Bird with the Crystal Plumage is a landmark film for that genre, more so than any of the other films that came out that year, and really any of the other films that came before it. You can say what you want about the Girl Who Knew Too Much or Blood and Blacklace, but neither of them had an influence on cinema, especially European and Italian cinema, near to the degree that the Bird with the Crystal Plumage did. Favorite writer? Again, this is a little tricky. I have 2. I will say Dario Argento for writing The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and there's a whole process with how that film was written, but I do appreciate the early writing efforts of Argento in his early films. I feel like he was trying way harder in the first decade of him making movies, and he kind of drops off at a certain point. I think most people would acknowledge that. The other favorite writer I have for 1970 is Mario Bava. Again, he always has to write his film scripts in some way or have an influence on them. And in terms of writing for the 5 movies, you got Argento writing probably the most important film in Giallo up to this point. And then you got Mario Bava writing 2 great Giallo films that year. And I really like them. For the channel, Hatchet for the Honeymoon was the first time I saw that movie, which was great. I had put it off for so long. I went into it knowing, well, you know who the killer is. So is this really a Giallo? Isn't this just a slasher? No, I talk about this all the time. There's plenty more things that make a Giallo a Giallo. They're both my favorite writer for this year for different reasons. I really appreciate Bava's writing. I think he's consistently good. There's a reason why he's the grandfather of Italian horror. He was always good. And he doesn't like $5 for an August Moon. That's fine. I like it. Anyways, both directors, I can't pick one over the other in terms of writing for the year of 1970. I think they're both the best writers. My favorite scripts, I'll just be really brief. Bird with Crystal Plumage, I've already talked about that. It's very well composed. You can tell that he had a very strong idea of how he wanted to direct it based off of how he wrote it. Argento's first effort is very professional. And these first 2 films of Argento are just very well written, very well translated from the page to the screen. The other script I really like, and this one is also like a miracle of like, I think how it was written and how it was rewritten, is Hatchet for the Honeymoon. So I talk about this in the Hatchet for the Honeymoon video, that Bava rewrote the script like halfway through it. Like it was already written, and Dagmar Lasseter was supposed to have like a much bigger role. And then he met Laura Betty and he asked her to be in a Bava, and he asked her to be in his movie. And she was like, I always want to be in a Bava movie. Hell yeah. And he was like, well, I don't really have a big meaty part for you, you know what? I'll write your part. Like, I'll write new stuff. And he basically has it that like her character gets killed off, but then her ghost is terrorizing the main character, which is great. But you know, he wrote Dagmar Lassender's character out of the movie essentially. Like, there's so few scenes with her. But I love the script and the film that we got, and I would love to see the original script and the movie for that before he added the more ghosty elements. We'll never know, but in terms of Giallo scripts that I would have liked to see the other version, that's one of them. Favorite music, favorite composer, I have two. Of course, one of them has to be Ennio Morricone. Ennio Morricone did the music for at least two of the movies. He did for Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. I don't know why I have a hard time remembering that. My other choice, though, is Piero Umiliani, who did $5 for an August Moon. Going off of just the two I've mentioned, Ennio Morricone and Piero Umiliani, I can't really pick one over the other. For me, $5 for an August Moon is probably one of my favorite Giallo soundtracks of all time. My favorite overall score, $5 for an August Moon. $5 for an August Moon, hands down, my favorite Giallo soundtrack. Favorite piece of music is, forgive me if I butcher this, is Fantoccio Grottesco. Interludio Giallo Part 3. It's such a good track. It's so funny how it's used as this recurring joke. But honestly, there are like numerous other pieces from that movie alone that I want to use in my own Giallo films. Moving on, my favorite scene, funny enough, my favorite scene is from $5 for an August Moon, and it is this scene. It's not really a single scene. I'm kind of cheating. It's a recurring joke that is played out over 5 scenes. And to me, it really makes the movie. If the movie didn't have the music, if it didn't have that piece of music with that recurring scene, that joke, I probably wouldn't like it anywhere near as much as I do. So I have to say, like, those sequences of scenes are so memorable to me that they stand out to me more so than any of the other scenes in these other movies. That's a big statement I'm saying for $5. My favorite ending or reveal, I chose like 4 movies. I'd like 4 of the 5. Like, Bird with the Crystal Plumage has a really good ending, a really good reveal. The whole switcheroo of him realizing that the victim, who he perceived to be the victim, was actually the one holding the knife against the person he perceived to be the killer. That's pretty good. The other one I have is $5, which the ending on that one, I was really shocked. I was really surprised. Like, oh, okay, that's who did it. Oh, okay. It's also pretty great. Again, this is credit to Bava's writing, that everybody was actually a killer in some degree. It's just 2 people you find out were the real masterminds. One person's death is faked, and the other person, who's like never suspected the entire movie, was working with this other person. Random girl on the island and the professor were working together, which is like, what? And then you find out their reason for working together at the very end, which is a little weak. I like the ending of $5. It's not like superb, but for me, it's noteworthy. Hatchet for the Honeymoon also has a great ending. Great mystery within the film of it. What seems like it might be a ghost story, but it's not. It's more of just this guy's guilt is plaguing him. And the way they pull off the reveal where Dagmar Lassender's character was actually like working with the police because she suspected that her sister was killed by, what was his name? Stephen Forsythe's character, whatever. That was good. And then the ending where he actually gets taken into the back of the bully van and he sees his wife's ghost, and she's confirming that she's never going to leave him, which is really good irony. It's a really well done ending with the music and the cut to the childhood, the kid version of the main character as it all fades to black. Really good. But I probably will say my favorite ending and reveal of all is for 1970, A Quiet Place to Kill. So good. Some people can think it's cheap or it's crap or whatever. And again, I'm not like, you're wrong. It's just, it worked for me. It was a great misdirection where you're following Carol Baker and Joan Sorrell's character as they murdered Joan Sorrell's new wife. And you're wondering if they're going to be able to get away with it. Meanwhile, the daughter of the murdered wife shows up, and she's trying to prove that the two of them killed her mother. And then you find out at the very end that she actually doesn't give a shit. She's been conspiring with John Sorrell's character this whole time because he and her have been secret lovers for years, which is weird because it's revealed that I think he was hooking up with her when she was like 13 or something like that, something of that equivalent. He's been hooking up with her for like a long time, since she was like a teenager. But they were working together to basically make Carol Baker's character so paranoid that she got into a car crash. What an ending it is. I think it's so hilarious in Umberto Lenzi's movies when he kills off Carol Baker. He always does it in such a funny way to me. And this one is just like really hilarious. The car goes right off a cliff, and it's just like free fall, boom, and then it just starts hitting the cliff and just starts rolling and hitting, and there is a fake body in the car, and the fake body gets like tossed out of the car and is like getting thrown upon the rocks. And what's amazing, I mentioned this in that review, is that I couldn't give full credit for bad effects. Bad effects I can give, I think, anywhere between 10 and 15 points. Like if there is a bad effect, or like technically there's a puppet for a body, I have to give points, 10 points. If it's a very bad effect, like for example, I just watched Black Belly of the Tarantula for an upcoming review GialliTally video, and there's a fake body that you watch fall down and then like accidentally hit a window, which is really funny. But it's so obviously a puppet. It's so obviously like a mannequin that they just pushed off of a building and filmed. That's full points. But the fake body in A Quiet Place to Kill when the car goes over the cliff is fairly convincing. It's actually like, it's not a real person, but it doesn't look like it's an obvious dummy. Moving on. My favorite kill, I put bird twice, but I didn't write any other notes for that. But let me think if I can think of what that might be. The first kill in Bird, I think it's the first kill, where the girl is smoking in bed, and then she looks up and the killer's standing in the doorway, and they like, grab her, cut her clothes off, and then slash her, and it like cuts away, but you see the blood splatter. That is like a masterclass in how to do S and V in a clean way. It's all there. It's amazing because it kind of calls back to Blood and Blacklace, with the kills all being very sexually suggestive, but it's, if you were to do that nowadays, it would just be like tasteless and brutal. Bird with the Crystal Plumage nails that with, if I recall, you don't see nudity in that sequence, and you don't actually see the violence. Everything is implied, and it's very well done. And yeah, so that for me is a standout kill in the genre, and especially for the year. I have Bird twice, but I'm trying to think what the other kill would be. It's not memorable. Whatever it is, it apparently isn't memorable enough for me to put it in there, so I'm not going to worry about it. The other one I have is A Quiet Place to Kill, which I've already talked about it. And I'm referring to the Carol Baker car going over the cliff because she's driving like crazy down this frickin' Highway 74 type road. And that lets you know where I grew up. And John Sorrell is just standing in the road around this sharp turn, which they already established in the movie. There's this really sharp turn, and he's standing right where she's supposed to be turning, and she freaks out, thinking that she thought he died. And is he really there? What's going on? And so she just kind of goes right off the cliff. So that's good. I'm sorry, I just love that. Okay, number 5 should not be a surprise because I've hardly talked about it, and that is The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. I don't have a whole lot to say. I talk more about it in my review and GialliTally video. It's not bad by any means. It's just not my cup of tea. And again, that doesn't mean I don't like it. That doesn't mean I think it's bad. That doesn't mean I think it is weak. None of that. It's just not particularly my jam. But the music is great. Some of the acting is really good. It kind of, you are wondering where it's going to go. It's not, it's not bad by any means. I know a lot of people really like it. So number 4, and this might surprise you because I have talked about this one a lot, but it had to go somewhere, and that is $5 for an August Moon. As much as I like this movie, as much as I adore this movie, I got to be honest. I might say this movie is great, but in the grand scheme of Giallo, it's not really great. I really like it. This is one of those types of movies that you can say with the caveat, I like this more than other movies, but I recognize it's not better. $5 for an August Moon is one of these types of movies that I really enjoy it. I enjoy it more than I'm sure Bava did. It's got its flaws. I accept it for its flaws. But the truth is, I probably would not like the movie as much if it were not for the soundtrack is the main thing. That soundtrack covers up so many of the flaws of that movie. The cast is also really good too. I really like it, but I will recognize that it is not near the top for 1970. Third favorite movie for 1970. Third favorite Giallo for 1970. Excuse me. A Quiet Place to Kill. I don't know what else to say for this movie. This is kind of like $5. I recognize that sometimes the writing is a little bad. Oh my God. Some of the dialogue is really terrible. And the delivery of those lines is really terrible, which is like, wow, they didn't do another take on that. Like, I'm thinking about the scenes when they're hanging out with all the other friends. When Carol Baker meets the judge character, okay, I'll give you an impression because it's so bad. She's like, I knew it. You have the flair of a bloodhound. Okay. And there's some other parts that are funny, like when she's taking the pill.
Oh, just a moment. I never drink on an empty stomach.
It's a really funny joke. And then in that same scene, they're mentioning how, I think his name is Maurice, John Sorrell's character. He's just a piece of shit. Like he just hooks up with other women and he doesn't care who he's with if they know it. And their one friend who's always got the video camera around, he's like, one of them might be jealous and kill you. Okay, that's a little on the nose. There's other examples later in the film of the writing just being like, I don't know. It doesn't really feel like a person actually said it. It feels like someone wrote that because they were trying to telegraph something to the audience, and just don't do that. Don't find better ways to sprinkle in the information besides it being like, and then the person says this in a way and we focus on it. I don't know. Second favorite movie, I gotta stop saying that. Second favorite Giallo for 1970 is Hatchet for the Honeymoon. Really great movie. I don't think there are many things that I could complain about for this movie. It is solid. It is very well written. It's such a strange Giallo in terms of how many times it breaks what are considered more of the cardinal rules of the genre. And I've defended this movie numerous times for people who are kind of purist on the definition of what the genre is and being like, but it's not a murder mystery. You know who the killer is. You follow the killer. And I'm like, yes. And it's like, well, it's not supposed to have paranormal elements, or it's not supposed to be like super paranormal or supernatural in general. Kind of. My defense on that is the source of what's going on can't be supernatural. It has to still be a human explanation behind what is happening. And that is true. It's not like, the ghost is making things happen or whatever. The reality for the movie, well, one way to perceive it, at least, he's going crazy. He is hallucinating, and it's whether that's real or not, it doesn't really matter, because what I was trying to say is it's not like the ghost is locking the door or is like opening the window, or it's causing actual change in the world that couldn't be explained any other way. Like in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, those ghosts are implied to be real, unless you just assume that Shelley Duvall's character is an idiot and doesn't know how to lock a door. Those ghosts are supposed to be real. There's no way he could have gotten out of the freezer if they weren't. But that's not the case in Hatchet for the Honeymoon. And in terms of him, there is a mystery still. All of these movies usually still have some mystery, whether it's, is this person going to get away with it? Are they going to kill this person? Are they going to get over their visions? All that stuff is there. And so it does have questions that you are waiting till the end to be answered. You just know who the killer is. And I want to say there are a few other Giallo films that you do know who the killer is. They're just escaping me at this moment. But regardless of all those things that it does to break out of the genre, and I don't even think it's intentionally trying to do that, it works, and it works very well. And another thing I'd mentioned about that film in the video, I believe I did, is that the film it didn't sit on the shelf in terms of the script. They had shot most of the movie, and then they ran out of money to finish it. And so Bava ended up getting paid to do, was it 4 Times That Night, I think is what it's called, the Rashomon type comedy movie he did. So Hatchet for the Honeymoon didn't get finished for like 2 years. And it really makes sense, because more so than like $5 for an August Moon or any of his other early 70s movies, this movie, Hatchet for the Honeymoon, feels like a 1960s Giallo film. Hopefully I don't have to explain that. You might have to go back to my 1960s overview, recap, whatever you want to call it, video, to really kind of get entrenched in that. But really feels like a movie a Giallo movie that could have come out of the 60s, especially because those movies were not really solidified with what this movement of film is. And it wasn't until Birth of the Crystal Plumage that it really kind of got solidified that it's like, this is it. This is mostly what it is. We can do other things. We can, step out. We can take 1 foot out, of the pool, but this is what it is. And Hatchet for the Honeymoon feels like it's playing with that. Feels like it's, this was Marco Polo. It's, this person got out of the pool, but they stuck their hand in still, and they're like, I'm still in the pool. Yeah, honestly, I don't really have anything negative to say about the movie. If I was really digging for something, I don't. It's such a well-made movie, and I wish I had seen it earlier. Favorite Giallo film of 1970. I hate to come off as cliched, but it's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Bird with the Crystal Plumage, I think, for whatever shortcomings I might say, some elements maybe are a little goofy. It still comes off as a more masterfully made film. Like I said, this movie really feels like you can see the vision of the script translated onto film, more so than many of the films I've covered up to this point. There's a few others that kind of be like, yeah, I can see that. The Possessed, I really is my favorite for the 1960s overall. I kind of feel that for that movie too, that you see a strong vision of how it was written and how it was then translated to the actual screen. Bird of the Crystal Plumage, the soundtrack is amazing. The acting is amazing. The writing with the mystery and the red herrings and all of it is amazing. The directing is next level, and I'm just crazy that it's a debut film. The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, also a debut film, but does nowhere near the same degree that Bird of the Crystal Plumage is working on. This movie changed Giallo cinema going forward. This movie essentially established Giallo cinema. And again, I don't say that lightly. It's not like I am ignorant of everything that was contributed in the 1960s, but nothing. The 60s was more of like an experimental period of working of Italian thrillers. And once this film came along, it was realized by both directors and studios, as well as audiences, that this was a viable medium to produce stories, to produce art, to produce films. There's a reason why this movie was imitated countlessly. And some of those imitations are fine. Some of those imitations are actually damn good. A lot of people point to the black belly of the tarantula being like so good as far as like copying the success of Bird, that it totally became its own thing. And I totally recognize that. It is a good mixture of Argento and Bava. But anyways, for all the things I enjoy in Hatchet, I probably wouldn't say it's like this is a masterclass film. This is a superb, but Bird of the Crystal Plumage is like, this movie is next level. Also, when you watch the Giallo films that were leading up to it, it just feels like leaps and bounds ahead of them. I would say it's certainly a must-see for anybody who's trying to be an avid fan or viewer of the genre. I would say it is probably the top 3 movies that you should see to get you into the genre. If you've never seen a Giallo film, I would say, because you could see the Girl Who Knew Too Much, which was the first one. You could see Blood and Black Lace, which was the first one that was more in the vein of what they would be. Or you could see Bird of the Crystal Plumage, which is the trendsetter, the one that really set it off. And I would say, go with that one. Go with that one. If you think you like it, then you can go back to the 60s and kind of watch what led up to it. Then you can really get into the 70s and even the 80s of Giallo films, like what the genre became. Do I personally think it's like in my top 5 or top 10 Giallo films of all time? Probably not my top 5. Probably maybe in my top 10. This was a very good year. There were no bad films this year. Forbidden Photos was just the one I felt was the weakest, but even then it's not like a weak film. It's a great debut. All of these movies are very good. You might dislike some of these movies. Hell, you might dislike all these movies. Maybe you don't like this genre, which is like, why are you watching this video? But yeah, that's kind of my takeaway for the Giallo films of 1970 that I covered. Tell me what your thoughts are for the year of 1970 for Giallo cinema. If you've seen all these movies, I really do actually want you to rank these movies. Give me your ranking. Tell me what you think. Hell, you can tell me what your favorite soundtracks are. Whatever you want to talk about, tell me. I want to hear it. I really do. Because for me, it's hard to find as many people that actually are engaged with this genre. And so I geek out on this genre, and it's fun to talk back and forth. Leave your thoughts on anything, and questions, thoughts, curiosities, concerns. And like I said, I will get back to you. So I will plug this, my Patreon, although Patreon viewers will be seeing this whole thing unedited. If you subscribe to my Patreon, you will see content that I put up there. I put it up as soon as it is finished. And then YouTube, I have a regular scheduled release block. So I post mostly on Mondays. I am doing new content that is Giallo related, that is just for the Patreon. I am doing a podcast series with a friend called Giallo Adjacent, where we are talking about movies that are sort of Giallo. We'll talk about the movie itself, plot, we'll talk about production. We will each rate the movie in different areas of how close we think it is to being a Giallo in terms of score of 1 to 5. I'm going to be reading Dead Girl Blues, which is this horror novella, I guess you would call it, by David Sodergren. I might reread Cruising. Puppet Combo did make a game, Blood Wash is what it's called. It is a Giallo. It is a Giallo-inspired game, which sounds really cool. So I want to do Let's Plays of that. Thank you for watching, whether you're a YouTube viewer and you just watch the stuff for free. Hell, thank you if you're a YouTube viewer and you're not subscribed. It's crazy, but my analytics tell me that like more than half of the people who watch my stuff aren't subscribed. If you would subscribe, it really does help me build my channel. Yeah, I really want to be the big Giallo channel on YouTube. I don't know what else to say. That's kind of all I've got. So I'm just gonna end this video here, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo. And if nothing else, I will see you next time.
What do I want them to get fat? I eat them. Why? What's the matter? Don't you like cat?
I don't know. I never ate any.
Never, huh?
Oh, no.